Welcome to another edition of Two Sites Unite. I'm George Phillips with oilpressure.com.
And I'm Paul Dalby with fieldof33.com.
Okay, a little rusty because we have not done this since, I believe it was August 6th, the last time we did this, or at least the last time we recorded it.
Right.
But lots has happened since you and I got together via the internet.
We got together and had our life flash before our eyes at Pocono.
Yes, we were standing atop turn two, the little billboard atop turn two, and got a bird's eye view of the enormous crash that took place that fortunately did not injure anybody. We were foolish, and with this crash coming right at us, we were foolish and just sat there running our phones and recording. And we got the recording, but risked our lives doing it.
That's right.
But also since then, there's been a championship decided. And also there's been what was at the time deemed a partnership, then a merger, maybe a possible takeover, possibly a hostile takeover. And that is the formation of Arrow McLaren SP and
Arrow McLaren Racing SP.
No, they dropped the racing. They decided that was too much. Hello?
Oh, I must have missed that.
Well, you froze there. So technical difficulties, but such as the life was Skype. No, they about 3 weeks into it, they announced that they were going to drop the racing part because even they realized that it was too much of a mouthful. So no,
I must have somewhere along the line missed that announcement.
You must have been blogging late that night when it happened. But it was I lost my train of thought about this, but since just this week, as we tape this on Friday evening, all the fallout with the jettisoning of James Hinchcliffe has taken place. I'll give you the floor first. Your thoughts?
I don't really understand why this has come as such a surprise to anyone. I think if you polled people, whether as media, fans, drivers, anyone other than the talking heads at McLaren and Schmidt, be it Sam Schmidt, Rick Peterson, Gilles de Ferran, Zach Brown, nobody really thought James Hinchcliffe was actually going to be driving that car next year. No. They said all the right words, and they kept saying he's under contract and he's our guy. We're sticking with him. We're looking forward to finding out who's going to be in the second seat. But I don't think anyone ever really thought that Hinch was going to be in that ride. So now all of a sudden the word comes out, and it's like everyone is super surprised by this. And I don't know why. But I think it's more just how it was handled this late in the season after so many other rides now are already spoken for. And as far as
especially Honda rides,
the only ones that we don't really know of yet are with 100% certainty would be Coyne's second, although most people feel pretty confident Santino Ferrucci will be back there. And then this rumored Rahal Letterman Lanigan ride, which sounds like it's going to be an expensive buy.
I'm not even sure that's a rumor. I think that's a wish.
Yeah.
However, I personally do think that is the most logical landing spot if he wants to be in a Honda.
Right.
I think he does, obviously, but even though that's the most logical landing spot, for right now, as far as we know, that spot is not there.
All right. And I mean, at this point, you have to ask, okay, has the Honda ship sailed? Does Hinch just need to focus on getting a ride, be it Honda or Chevrolet at this point?
And I'm sure that's what he and his team, his handlers, his managers, agents, whatever.
Right.
I'm sure that's what they're determining right now.
Right.
Now there was I don't know if you seen the Norris McDonald article,
I did, yes.
and I was surprised he sort of took his fellow Canadian to task for being a little passive, because he pointed out that Marcus Ericsson, the minute this whole McLaren thing was announced, he saw the writing on the wall and he went out and got himself a plum ride.
Right. I think everyone thought Marcus Ericsson was gone from Schmidt no matter what happened, whether it was staying with Schmidt, Peterson for next year, regardless of the whole McLaren fiasco. I don't think anyone really thought Marcus Ericsson was going to be back in, I hate to even say this, I didn't think he was going to be back in the number 7 car next year.
No, I think you're right. but he was smart, and I hate this corporate buzzword, but he was proactive, and he went out and got the money that it took to go buy his way into a ride with Ganassi.
Right.
And now Norris McDonald was kind of taking Hinch to task that he was not as proactive, but I'm kind of thinking, I could be way off base here, but I'm thinking that as we know, Sam Schmidt and all the parties involved kept saying, Hinch is under contract. Hinch is under contract. We're going to honor that contract. I know, but I'm thinking that so as long as they were saying this, I think that may have legally, I don't know, but it could have legally kept Hinchcliffe from going out and actively seeking other employment. I mean, I know in the NFL it's called tampering.
This. Right. Yeah. So I don't know what the legalistic ramifications there. What would be interesting is to go back now and look at the verbiage that Schmidt and Zach Brown have used since early August when this announcement came out, when they kept saying, we have Hinch under contract, Hinch is our guy. Did they ever actually come out in the media and say Hinch will be driving the number 5 car next year? That would be interesting to see. Or have they carefully chosen their words at every single step along the way?
They could have.
Why didn't I see that?
And knowing the way they have handled this whole situation, it would not surprise me that this is all. But if that's the case, I mean, were they just going to hold on to him in case they couldn't find anybody else, or what? Now they've, and I still question. And let me back up a second. I really feel sorry for Pato O'Ward and Oliver Askew, because this should be their high five moment. I mean, this is their biggest professional achievement to this point.
Sure.
And it's just been rained on by this whole Hinch fiasco.
Well, the interesting thing to me is even before the McLaren-Schmidt merger came along and it was just McLaren rumors, it seems like Pato O'Ward was rumored for that one of those rides all along.
Yeah, because
it's possible. So this whole excuse that they've used in the last 72 hours about, oh, well, now Pato O'Ward suddenly became available from Red Bull and whatever he was doing over in Japan.
Are you on a ship?
No.
You're rocking back and forth.
So whatever, he was already rumored for that ride. So to me, it seems like he was already slotted in the 7 car with Hinch in the 5. So I'm not really sure what Pato O'Ward's release from Red Bull really had to do with this, unless Oliver Askew was already signed to one of these rides, and he was originally supposed to be Hinch's teammate, and that's when they cut Hinch loose.
Yes. Some of this we'll never know, but of course, and I've always read the rumors or reports that Zach Brown and O'Ward were having breakfast at Long Beach, discussing, they're possibly coming over here and engaging his interest. So obviously O'Ward has been on Zach Brown's radar for a long time.
Yeah.
Now, maybe when he was in Japan, that kind of muddied the waters, and then Askew became available. Of course, Askew's got what? $1 million.
$1 million from the Indy Lights, yeah.
Right, but So I don't know, but none of this makes sense. And then of course you throw in the whole Arrow got mad because Hinch posed nude in the magazine and all this stuff. But I mean, and supposedly he almost lost his ride at Laguna Seca.
Right.
But that was 6, 7 weeks ago.
Right. Right.
And so they're just now getting around to firing him.
Well, I mean, they already fired their PR. I mean, how many other people did they let go of because of that fiasco?
So I don't know. None of this makes sense. But all I know is this is another sleazy chapter in a long line of McLaren Schmidt ever since this thing was announced in early August.
Yeah.
And Schmidt's team was always fairly popular. I think Hinchcliffe brought some popularity to that team.
Sure, absolutely.
But the pairing of those two really made that a popular team with fans. And that team has gone, it's almost like Emerson Fittipaldi when he refused to drink the milk. I mean, that quickly, the popularity of that team has gone from up here to way down here.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a shame. It's a shame for O'Ward and Oliver Askew because they're blameless in this. They've done nothing to this except sign what is potentially a good ride for a rookie and almost a rookie.
And I thought your article this morning was spot on. Every point that you made in there about feeling bad. I'll just say it. There are rumors. I don't even know if rumors is the right word, but when you speak to a lot of people in the IndyCar paddock about Sam Schmidt and his business dealings and working for him as an employee and he being an employer, as you rightfully noted, people lower their voice when they want to speak the truth about it, because while he is a feel-good story and he is to be commended for the perseverance that he has shown since his testing accident, and hence being a quadriplegic now for 19 years, that does not insulate him and give him immunity from shady business dealings.
No.
And this is not the first dealing. At the time, you go back to about 2010, 2011, and there were rumors swirling about the deal that went down with Alex Tagliani and the Fast Racing team. And it's no secret that Alex Tagliani wasn't in the ride that he brought to Schmidt when Dan Weldon was fatally injured at Las Vegas. In fact, he was driving for Brian Hurta in that race while his car was being piloted by Dan Weldon. You go forward a few more years, Davey Hamilton comes into the team, brings HP in to the fold. With Simon Pagano has an HP ride in 2013, in that ballpark. Then all of a sudden, Davey Hamilton's gone, and HP's still with Schmidt, and there's a cycle that's gone on every so often. And I I texted you this the other day. I won't put a name to this. I won't put a name to it, but somebody within IndyCar that I have a lot of respect for in the IndyCar family perfectly summed it up, said that Sam Schmidt, the only difference between Sam Schmidt and John Barnes is mobility. And if anyone remembers John Barnes from the Panther racing days, it's a perfect analogy.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you summed it up pretty well, that just because you are you find yourself in a wheelchair for the rest of your life, that's a tragic story, but that does not cement you to good guy status.
Sure.
And I think Sam Schmidt he has been shielded from being paired with John Barnes up to this point. But I think this is causing a lot of people to really raise questions.
Sure.
People are now kind of they're doing more than whispering. I mean, you and I we've been hearing the same whispers for several years, just even our our elevated status as lowly plotters. But I think now these stories are starting to come out, and it's a shame too.
Sure, I said the other day on Twitter that there's this saying that racing is a dirty business, and I think racing inherently is not a dirty business. Racing has a disproportionate share of dirty people in racing. But there are guys who have made legendary status, have teams that are legendary that don't do dirty pool. You look at a guy like Roger Penske, who he can have anyone he wants at any time he wants driving his cars. Yet he has always been loyal to his suppliers. He's been loyal to his drivers. He's been loyal to his manufacturers and partners, both from a business standpoint and from a racing standpoint. He could have cut Elio loose years ago, but he's continued to be loyal to him. The only person I can remember him being disloyal to, and perhaps that's not even the word I want to use, but maybe treated a little shady, would have been Kevin Kogan back in 1982.
Yeah.
But I can't name another one that he has really cut loose and not stood by for many, many years. Yeah. Even after they quit driving for him. There's been, whether it's been Danny Sullivan or Emerson Fittipaldi or, Gilles de Ferran.
Rick Mears, who's still there?
Still there, yes. When you join, and it's been said several times, when you join Roger Penske's racing family, no matter what happens in your career after you leave that status, or after you leave that team, you were always part of Penske. I think James Hinchcliffe will continue to go to Christmas parties for
you
Schmidt,
froze up
Peterson, Arrow. What's that?
Said you froze up on some of that.
Yeah, well.
If one of us has bandwidth issues. I have an idea. It's probably me. So anyway, I think there's still a lot more to come out of this. I hope Hinch lands on his feet, and I hope it's with a Honda, because he wants to be with Honda.
Sure.
And Honda wants him. Somebody's got to go out and find some money, though.
What I won't be surprised to see happen is that Honda puts Hinch in an Acura sports car in 2020, puts him in the Indianapolis 500 in a Honda ride, whether that's for a second Michael Shank racing machine, if that's a third Rahal, a third or fourth coin. I think he'll be in the 500. But I won't be surprised to see that be one of only one or two IndyCar races that James Hinchcliffe is in. And I think he may spend 2020 in an Acura sports car with an eye toward getting back in the IndyCar series in 21.
What would you think about him glad-handing, so to speak, and collecting Sanchez's money? Or do you think that Schmidt is just looking for an opportunity to fire him?
Based on what came out, was it in Racer today, or maybe it was in Sham Schmidt's interview? I don't know where it was. I read that he can stay with Schmidt this year, but he's expected to attend every race. He has to be in the hospitality. He has to go shake hands, kiss babies, talk racing, blah 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 blah.
And he will
probably wear Schmidt apparel too. That has
he'll have to wear Schmidt apparel with a big Chevy bow tie on it.
Yeah. I don't see that being a top, but I think maybe it was in Norris McDonald's article that to do so, he was going to get like a $500,000 salary or something.
Yeah, that's apparently his salary. And I saw Adam Stern said the same thing, that his salary is $500,000, and there are not many drivers. I think you can count them on maybe one hand that are collecting that kind of a salary. So,
sure. I apologize if my texts are going off. I'm in a group chat that has text after text after text.
Well, your phone does have a silent button on it.
Well, it's not my phone. They're coming through on my laptop.
Oh, I see that. Okay.
Yes.
Well, see, I just got a text, and it's silent. So,
yeah.
Okay. So anyway, a lot more to come on that. We're gonna everybody's gonna be keeping an eye on it. But let's back up. Newgarden won the championship. no surprise there really. It's so far back, probably no real. Do you have any thoughts or
My thought was
just thoughts on the season in general that we just wrapped up?
yeah, I think it was a good season. I think the right driver won the championship. I thought it was fairly anticlimactic coming down the stretch. I never felt like Newgarden was really out of control of it until maybe those last 15, 20 laps at Laguna Seca turned out to be a little bit more interesting than I was expecting them to be. But I never, from race to race, I never really felt like Newgarden lost control of this championship from way back through midsummer. I think he had a grasp on it, and kudos to and congratulations to Joseph. Yeah, I thought he had a fantastic year. Still doesn't have the prize he really wants. That went to Simon Pagenaud this year. But I think a second IndyCar championship certainly solidifies his position, says he has certainly arrived and is probably one of the top 2 drivers in the series right now, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm wondering though, because remember Sam Schmidt had a horrible record at Indianapolis until he won it. And
who?
Sam Hornish. Too many Sams. Sam Hornish had a horrible record at Indianapolis until he won it. And I'm wondering if Joseph's going to do that, because his record at Indianapolis is not that good.
Yeah. I could see that. I think he's going to break through very soon. I won't be surprised if he wins it next year. I won't be surprised if he still wins 2, 3, or 4 of them in his career. I think they're going to happen. He hasn't been around that long. 2012 would have been his first year, so this would have been his 8th 500 maybe this year. I think he's had real good success, but I've also felt like he has been a little bit of the rabbit for the Penske guys the last couple of years, where if he hasn't been right up front, Joseph seems to be the guy that kind of gets put on the alternate strategy, and they try to make something work for him then.
I'm hoping this comes out better than what I just saw. I could hear you fine, but your face was frozen for about 30 seconds.
That's unfortunate.
Well, at least you wore it in a face like modern technology. Going forward, I mean, I know we're November. Mm-hmm. And there's still a lot of rise, especially on the Chevy side. I mean, Carlin is still totally undecided.
Yep.
I still wonder, is Connor Daly going to end up in one of those, do you think?
I would like to think so, but for some reason he just seems to be like Teflon, and rides don't stick to him. I don't know what the problem is, but I won't be surprised. They seem like they had a good rapport there last year.
Yeah.
Nice to see.
I know Robin Miller was saying a couple of weeks ago that he could see a scenario where he might return to the number 4 car with Foyt. I don't know why he would want to do that.
I don't know why you would want to. Yeah.
But I guess if you have no other option, is that a better option than just sitting out?
Not if sitting out gives you the opportunity to perhaps run another Andretti car at the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah. So, and then of course Colton Herta, he's full-fledged Andretti now. And have you jumped on the Herta bandwagon yet?
It's hard to not be on the Herta bandwagon at this point. I was admittedly unconvinced, but he has certainly shown well.
Yeah,
he had a season to be very proud of, and you hope that team shows well in 2020 as well. That they're such a fairy tale story this year. Even though everyone knew they had Andretti really in the background, there are still a lot of guys on that team, be it Brian Barnhart or Mike Harding, Alonso Jr., who's of course no longer associated with that team now. Colton Herta being the rookie, they had some good engineers on that team. They were such a feel-good, small team feel about them last year. You hope they don't lose that and kind of get lost in the mucky muck at Andretti.
Yeah, and it's certainly possible that Colton Herta has a sophomore slump.
Mm-hmm.
lot of chapters still to be written on him and that team going forward. Rossi kind of fell short at the end. In fact, he really kind of faded after he signed his deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you see him bouncing back, or what do you see for Rossi?
I do. I think I think the championship's still going to go through Rossi and Newgarden next year. I think if you're going to win the championship, you got to beat those two guys. If you're not one of them.
What about the other newlywed, Simon Pagenaud?
I don't know. I don't know what to make of Pageant. I don't know. I don't feel. I didn't feel like he was really in the championship contention, even though he, came up pretty close. But I really don't know what to make of the second and third Penske cars right now, and your order of who's second and who's third can be debated all day, and I could go either way on that. But I think clearly right now Joseph is number one.
Do you think Will Power's best days are behind him?
Oh, yes.
Well, I mean, that's obvious because he's 38, 39 years old now. Right. But I mean, do you consider him a championship threat for next year?
No. Okay. I consider him a lame duck at Penske now for as long as Alexander Rossi's contract stays at Andretti.
Okay. Do you see Elio with a 500 ride with Penske for next season, next May?
Yes.
You hesitated.
I did. I think he's got one more 500 in him with Penske.
Okay. All right. And
let me preface that by saying I won't be shocked if he runs the 500 with somebody besides Penske next year. I would not be absolutely shocked if he ended up with, say an Ed Carpenter. Of course, he can kind of play both sides as well because
he's an excellent driver.
He's a Honda driver on the sports car side. So does that open up Honda possibilities in the 500? I don't think so. I'd be shocked to see him driving a Honda car in the 500. I think if he drives another car, it would be a Chevrolet, and I think he'd probably want to go with Carpenter just because of how strong that team is at Indianapolis.
Right.
But I think ultimately we'll see him one more time in a Penske car.
Real quick question, because I know you're up against a time crunch.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, I wrote something about Marco Andretti, so I have two questions. Inside joke. Do you think
he won't be driving a German touring car? I'll tell you that.
No. Do you think Marco will ever win another race? And B, do you think Marco will ever win the Indianapolis 500?
The former is much more realistic than the latter.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, his last couple, as much as I wanted to pull for him in Indianapolis, his last couple of years have been fairly atrocious, especially last year.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was a year or this year, I suppose it still is. Yeah. That's a year that I'm sure he'd rather just forget, especially with all the hype around his being the 50th anniversary of his grandfather's 1969 win and
driving that car.
Yes. And then it's just a bucket of turd driving around all day.
I mean, I think he started 10th in that race,
somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah.
And I mean, by the end of the first lap, he had dropped like a stone.
Yeah. So I don't know. I could see him winning again somewhere like Iowa. He's very good on the short ovals, intermediate ovals. So maybe Iowa or Richmond will suit him well. He's already got a win at Iowa.
Yeah, that's one of the two.
Texas, I don't know, but I think if he gets another win, it would be Iowa or Richmond. Would be my guess.
Okay. Well, I know you've got to get moving here, but I wanted to squeeze this in at least before Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And Well, last time I checked, you hadn't posted that often. Anything coming up for me on the print side?
Well, that's my plan. I'd like to discuss this whole Sam Schmidt thing. I need to find some time to work has been a nightmare lately, and I need to prioritize some family time here coming up soon. But I'll dust off the keyboard before too much longer.
I had to cut you some slack because I know what your work schedule's been like. I think you spent all of last weekend in Texas working, didn't you?
Yeah, all last week and weekend. Now I go back on Sunday for a couple more days.
And you still have young children, which of course I do not. My parenting days are long behind me. So
one of them is keeping me busy enough for both parents in this house. So it is.
Well, I will let you go, but glad we were able to do this, get some time to hash things out. And
absolutely.
Your line have been looking better lately. My balls have been looking better lately. So let's just.
Your Titans won last weekend.
Titans have won 2 in a row. So
my Illini. We won't even talk about my Blackhawks though.
No, and I think I told you Susan and I are actually going to the Blackhawks Preds game here November 16th. So
love to be there. I would love to be there.
But anyway, we'll end this now. So anything else?
Take care of it.
All right. Well, for Paul Dalby, I am George Phillips. Thank you for watching.
See you next time.